Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been like 3 years, but today I'm gonna do a little vlog. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some gardening I've been doing at my house and kind of just trying to cope with the general state of things and yeah, just hang out for a little bit, so hopefully you enjoy. So none of you need me to tell you that the current news cycle has been just indescribably atrocious in many, many different ways. And I find myself having a really hard time lately deciding what I should do. So I've been trying to come up with just little ways to help in the little ways that I can, which sometimes feels limited, but I think that it's not for nothing. The way that I've been trying to keep myself informed without giving myself burnout and without giving myself, constant panic attacks is I try to give myself a set amount of time that I am being informed, and then I come up with a game plan of things I can do. And then I set it down, I do those things, and then I call a family member or I'll do something creative. And it's kind of just doing what you can to help and what's within your control, and without completely paralyzing yourself by thinking that there's nothing that you can do to help. So obviously there's a whole gambit of things that you can choose from every day to be your project for the day that you're focusing on. And recently it's been, kind of hard figuring out what to do. So a lot of what I've been doing, it sounds silly, but it's not. I've been doing a lot of gardening. So my husband and I we bought a house, which we're very lucky that we were able to do that. It's very, very hard in this economy to buy a house right now. But we bought a house and we live in the West Texas High Plains region. And so there's a big issue in our neighborhood and in our state and in our country and in the world at large with lawns. Lawns are dead zones in terms of biodiversity. It's very hard to find pollinators in them. It's very hard for there to be beneficial plants, for there to be shade, for there to be carbon sink benefits from them. And so what my husband and I have been focusing on are looking up native plants in our area and seeing where in our yard we can start planting native, or replacing some of the things that aren't native with things that are. The previous homeowners seemed like they were very kind people, but they loved their invasive plants. We've got morning glory, which is beautiful, but very invasive. We've got vitex trees in the backyard. We have periwinkle. We've got 4 o'clocks. I feel like everything that they planted is invasive. And invasive meaning that, for example, with the morning glory, it grows very fast, spreads very, very quickly, and it steals resources from the native plants. It doesn't have as big of an advantage for pollinators. Sometimes you'll see like a bee on one, but it's not as common as with native flowers or native plants. And they will actually strangle the native plants that you have around them. They can also get into your foundation. There's a ton out in our front yard that was trying to get like under our bricks of our house. They can be very damaging. So one thing that I do every day is before I go to work in the morning, I will go outside and pick morning glory. That's going to be something that we're going to have to do for years. It's very hard to get rid of. But we had in front of our house, there was a big line of boxwood bushes, which are fine, but they're not native. They don't provide a whole lot of benefit for native animals, and they also smell like cat piss. So we got rid of the boxwoods, and we got a native wildflower mix of annuals and perennials native to our area specifically, and planted them where the boxwoods were. But the boxwood also had morning glory growing within it, and the morning glory is constantly popping up in that bed. So every morning I have my coffee, my husband and I go out in the front porch and we pick morning glory, and it's a good time to breathe and think about whatever you need to think about. And then, even though it feels like a small thing, you're helping the native plants, which is helping the biodiversity in your area, which is helping support wildlife, support native plants. It's helping combat urban heat deserts, which is when areas where people live, or heavily populated cities, and sometimes just little neighborhoods. We live in a suburb, where it becomes a heat desert because you are raising all of the native wildlife and you put in a lot of asphalt, concrete, or lawns, and so those areas are very, very hot compared to what they would be if they had a lot of plant life, because evapotranspiration that happens in the leaves cools the area, and it's also carbon sinks, there's shade, so you're helping combat the urban heat bubbles. We're helping support our native plants while getting rid of a very, very invasive, aggressive plant, and that feels like it helps. We also, in our backyard, have a lot of sticker weeds, and eventually we would like to have kids and have a nice place for them to run around. So we're thinking of overseeding those areas, those patches, with a native ground cover, maybe frog fruit, or I think we're gonna try clover first. It's not a native clover species, because I don't know that there is native to Texas clover species. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I'm learning. But it isn't invasive. It's naturalized to the environment, and it's drought tolerant. So that's one area of consideration for this place that we live in, is that it gets very hot, and lawns require a lot of water, which in times of water stress, it can be difficult to conserve your water wisely. And so it's always better to have a native lawn that requires generally the amount of water that you get from the rain. You don't have to provide supplemental water nearly as much. So clover is drought resistant, and it also, you don't have to mow it as often, and it can withstand foot traffic. So I think we're going to try that first. If that doesn't end up working out, we'll try maybe creeping thyme, frog fruit, try to find maybe like a native grass. Buffalo grass is native here, for the ground cover over there, to help suffocate those weeds and also provide a nice soft spot for us to go out there barefoot. I'm always barefoot in the yard, and then also somewhere when we have kids for them to run around. We're also starting a little garden of vegetables. When I say starting, I mean we have a raised bed. We tried to plant some lettuce, but lettuce doesn't grow very well in our area, so and I think the birds ate it, which is fine. Glad they got something to eat, I guess. But we're gonna try strawberries next, and so today I think I'm gonna find some little rocks in the yard and paint them to look like strawberries. The theory behind that is that the birds will come over to investigate and see, like, oh, this is a rock, this is an edible, and then hopefully when your strawberries come in, they'll, associate it with being a rock, and they won't be as interested in the strawberries. We'll see if that actually works. And the idea behind growing our own food is, it would be nice to be able to feed our family with it, if it does well, and then hopefully also feed our community with it, our friends and family and neighbors, maybe donating some food to a food bank. I feel like with grocery prices being the way that they are, food insecurity is a big issue right now. And so, utilizing some of our space that was just grass as a garden seemed like a nice thing to do. Also, with the sticker weeds, my husband is a genius, basically, and he learned that if you pull your weeds, you can't compost them, because then you'll have the seeds in your compost, and when you lay your compost down, the weeds will reemerge. But if you take the weeds and you put them in a bucket about 3/4 of the way full and add some water, cover it and then stir it every couple of days for about 2 weeks, you'll have fertilizer. And then you can drain out the weeds and use that water as fertilizer. And so it's a way for that organic material to not go to waste, but still not be put into compost and then becoming a recurring issue. Also, in terms of weeds, we have been leaving all of our dandelions, which I highly recommend. They're a great source for early pollinators. They're harmless and you can eat them, and they're pretty. And I feel like a lot of people just associate them as being weeds. They get rid of them really quickly. You should leave them. Bees like them, butterflies like them, little kids like to make wishes on them. And you can eat the leaves, you can put them in a nice dandelion salad. So that's part of my plan today, is to go out, pull some more weeds for some fertilizer, pick some morning glory, and then take care of the plants that we have growing. And then I'm also going to call my Congress people. I try to do that every day if I can, if I remember, but at least once a week at the bare minimum. I know a lot of people have a lot of phone anxiety, but some helpful tips are, there is a site called 5 Calls. It will provide a list of topics of interest with call scripts, so you don't have to try to come up with it on the spot. You can if you prefer, but if you're somebody who has anxiety. And also another tip is that if you really hate talking to people, you can call after hours and leave a message. They'll still record your message, but that way you don't have to speak to a staffer if that's something that makes you nervous. 5 Calls also will give you the numbers of all of your local representatives if you put in your zip code. So it's very important to call your representatives, regardless of which party they represent, to voice your concerns. And a lot of people recently, I've been seeing people say that it, doesn't matter, they're not listening to you. But my thought on that is, you could either call or not. What harm does it do to have your voice be heard just that little bit more, instead of just doing nothing? If it's something you're able to do, I find that it's a good practice. One thing to keep in mind, though, is to be very, very polite to the staffers who answer the calls. They're just people working, they don't represent necessarily the representative that you're calling. They're there to get their paycheck and feed their family and answer your call. So always make sure that you're very polite to them, and also don't make any threats or say anything stupid, Sometimes I will just call to bully my representatives because they're horrible. And when I say bully, I mean I'll call them just to say, like, just reminding you that I don't like you and I'm not going to be voting for you. That's an option, but don't make any threats. Don't be rude to the staffers. So that's what I'm doing today. I'll go out and show you our native flower bed that we've got working on. Maybe I'll pull some morning glory if it's coming up. I'll show you the fertilizer that my husband is making, and maybe I'll show you me painting some rocks, and I'll also film me calling my Congress people if it's something that makes you nervous, so you can see somebody doing it, see kind of what it's like. So we're out in the backyard. Excuse the sounds of construction. We've got some people working in our alleyway, but I'll show you the fertilizer bucket that my husband was working on. We're slowly working on our yard. We're just basically doing our best. We've just kind of gotten started, so there's a lot of work to be done. This is something that the previous owners left for us, this cat. So that's nice. Catching a mouse.
This is my weed bucket. And basically this is just going to be a whole lot of fertilizer instead of throwing out your weeds. You can't really compost weeds because the seeds will grow in your compost, and then wherever you put that compost, you will have weeds, so you don't want that. So instead, you put this in some water, and you let it set for a couple weeks, and it will get very stinky and be great nutrients to put back into your garden. So that's my weed juice.
So this is where we're gonna have our raised beds for growing some food. This is where the lettuce was massacred by the birds and the sun. But this is where we're planning on putting strawberries for this season. We've got some alyssum, which isn't native to the area, but is naturalized. Is that correct?
I don't think it's naturalized. I think it's just a nice perennial. It's not invasive at all, but it's a nice pollinator thing. I like it. I like how it spills over the edges of the bed once it gets fully established into it. But eventually I would like to plant something that's, if not native, naturalized to the area in the bed, but companion planting is a big thing that we're working towards. So
yeah. So I have seen some pollinators on it though. Some bees do seem to like it. It doesn't seem to do very well in the heat, so the alyssum might not make it, but it's here. And so this is where we're going to put the strawberries. I'm going to plant some little rocks, or paint some little rocks rather, and stick them in here so that the birds get used to not being able to eat the berries. And then here's some of the vitex trees. A lot of them aren't even doing very well. They've got some disease on them. This one seems to be doing okay. I think we're gonna leave at least this one for this year, just because we've got a lot of projects, so we're kind of trying to pick and choose our projects, but eventually all three of these are going to be gone, and we'll place some native plants here. Maybe not trees here because of the fencing. We don't want the fencing to be damaged by trees, but maybe some shrubs, maybe some native flowers. And we've also got a bird bath over here. This is Annie. So this is where the boxwoods originally were that I was talking about. We've got these seedlings growing. We planted them, about how long ago did we plant these?
these last week of February.
Last week of February, and right now is the beginning of April. We've got a bee bath here as well, which is doing very, very well. I thought we would get just a couple of bees every day, but we get like a whole hive. These are non-native European honeybees. But they are still bees. I'm never going to be mad at a bee in my yard, and so I'm happy that they're here and taking a drink. And we also have had 2 native bees in our yard, which I'm really excited about. Also show some pictures of them, and maybe you can help me identify them, but I think that they were both digger bees. I think maybe one was a carpenter bee actually. But so we've got these native plants growing here. We've got some bluebonnets in this mix, cosmos, a bunch of different varieties of sunflowers. We've also got, this is a weed, but it's henbit. We found that it's something that the early pollinators really seem to like, and it's not harmful, it's not invasive, so we've been leaving it. It also has these really pretty purple flowers, so that's been staying. But every morning, like I said, so you can see my shadow, not very great cinematography, I fear, but I'll come in here and you can see these, for example, I'm not sure if you can see this. This right here is a morning glory. You can tell because they're a little bit more of a lime green color. When they come in, they kind of have sort of a, I call them like a little devil's hoof shape. I'll put a picture on the screen. But this is what they look like, and they grow so fast. Like I said, we come out and pull them every day, and I mean, they grow every single day, and some of them grow pretty tall. So I come out and I just, you know, it's best to try to get as much of the root as you can, but sometimes no root comes out. It's kind of, at this point, we're just doing anything we can to keep them from flowering. So even if you can't pull up the root, it's better than nothing, you know? So that's what we have. Unfortunately, the previous owners also had a lot of rubber mulch in this bed. We got out as much as we could. It was probably about this thick with just rubber mulch, which is just torn up tires. And so not necessarily great for the soil. I like the idea of recycling, but I think those tires could be recycled in maybe a more efficient way. And so you can see on one side of the garden bed, it's not as heavily planted, and I think that's because this is having some more pressure from that rubber mulch. But this side is growing pretty tall, so we're happy about that. Hopefully we'll be getting some blooms pretty soon. We saw some buds coming up over here, which I'll show you. You can see a couple of little buds coming in. Do you know what this one is that's growing here?
I have no idea yet. There are
Guess we'll
natives
see.
and non-natives in this bed. I don't know if those are cosmos. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, and he makes a good point. The mix that we got is not completely native. We bought from American Meadows, and it's a mostly native mix, but it did have some that are not invasive, but not necessarily native. I did find a site that focuses more on Texas native plants, and they only put native plants in their mixes, and also divide their mixes by region in Texas. I'll link them in the comments so that you can see them. He's picking out a morning glory. But so I think we might use them next year instead, just so we can get a completely native mix. But this is certainly more native flowers than there were originally. So, and also just for some artsy things, I was trying to do mosaics in the cracks of the sidewalk. This one turned out so messy and I don't like it. The grout doesn't match and I'm pretty unhappy with it. I think I'm gonna try to, and I also just did a really sloppy job. This was my kind of experimentation. He's just pulling out morning glory. This was my experimental patch. So I might take this up and kind of sand it down and redo this one, but I do have another little piece that I think I did a little bit better. I need to sand down the extra grout, but I think this one's a little bit cuter. So we do have a lot of cracks in our sidewalk, and I think I want to make it colorful and hopefully a little bit neater than that next time. But around our mailbox we have some, we planted some bluebonnets and some Texas red salvia. So I'll show you that. The bluebonnets towards the front didn't end up surviving. I think it was too hot next to the asphalt, is my theory. But we've got some nice pretty blooms on our salvia, and then the back bluebonnets are looking really nice. So we're happy about that.
So I guess that our bluebonnets have gone to seed because I didn't trim them off quick enough, but that's okay. We'll just probably let them go this year. I could come through here and pluck them to see if they'll rebloom, but honestly I think I'm going to leave them and let them reseed for next year. And are you okay?
Our neighbor just came out to talk to my husband. That's a really good thing about gardening too, is you get to know your community. But we planted some honeysuckle over here. This was entirely morning glory. It was coming in through under the bricks. It was insane. So this is a constant battle pulling the morning glory out. And honeysuckle is just really important to us because we had our honeymoon in Ireland, and Ireland smelled really heavily of honeysuckle. So I even got a tattoo of it on my ankle. So we really like honeysuckle, and we've got a lot of pollinators that really like it here. And it's a vining plant that isn't invasive. So we ended up putting, did you say this is horse wire?
This is, I think this is just sheep panel that we got from Jibo's here in town. And we're just using this as the trellis for it. It's a lot cheaper than going and buying actual trellis. A lot easier to put up in my mind. So, but yeah. And then regarding the honeysuckle, they're not naturalized to our area, but they are non-invasive. They're a sensation honeysuckle from proven winners. They're still get those classic yellow blooms, just like a Japanese honeysuckle would. They smell really, really fragrant, but they're just non-invasive. So they won't spread like wildfire, but it's going to have a nice little wall for us to have a good little area over here.
Yeah, and we're thinking we might put a little bistro set over here eventually, and then hopefully these will grow in really nice. And then David mulched these over with some hay to help, retain water?
Yeah, it just retains moisture. It helps a little bit with a weed barrier, not too much in this, just because we have an ongoing battle with this morning glory. But it should help at least keep the water in, so I don't have to water as much around this area. Some of these do get full sun for most of the day.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully these will grow in really nice this year. They're supposed to grow pretty tall in the first year after planting, so we're hoping they look really nice and pretty, and we can get some of that nice smell and maybe attract some butterflies and some hummingbirds.
One of them, I can't remember which one I was looking at, but this one's already starting to get a bloom, a bud on it, so we may see a flower here relatively soon coming up on these. This might have one coming up right there too. So So we'll see how they do.
Awesome. He's the gardener out of the two of us. I kind of do it as more of a hobby. I think for him it's a lifestyle, I fear. There's Sasso. So I'm about to call my Congress people. So this is 5 calls. That's the website I was talking about earlier. You can set your location here. I'm not going to show you where I live, but you can set your location with just your zip code here, and then pick your issue. What I like to do is I call my congressman, and I also call my senator. So I'll probably pick one issue for my congressman and one issue for my senator. So I think what I'm going to do is I have Congressman Arrington as my congressman right now. I think I'm going to ask him to protect our public lands. So I'll click on that issue, and then you can see the script that you can use.
Congressman Arrington's office, how may I help you?
Hi, I was hoping to leave a comment for Congressman Arrington, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was calling to express my concern about the Trump administration's mismanagement and destruction and sale of our public lands. I was asking for Representative Arrington to oppose the reorganization of the U.S. Forest Service, which will weaken the agency's ability to protect our national forests. And then I also wanted him to oppose the repeal of regulations that protect our lands and wildlife from mining, drilling, and logging.
I will certainly pass along this message.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the call.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Bye. Easy peasy. And you can leave a call even if your voice shakes. It happens all the time. Just do it. The thing about calling Senator Cornyn, if he's your senator, is that he is, often his staffers are swamped, and so they won't always answer. So a lot of times with him, you'll get sent straight to voicemail, which could be nice if you have phone call anxiety. But if they do answer, keep in mind that they are very, very busy, so be very polite to them. But so I'm going to go ahead and give him a call now.
Hello, this is Senator John Cornyn. Thanks for calling my Washington, D.C. office. For general information regarding my office locations and operating hours, please press 1. To leave a comment regarding current issues of interest, please press 2. I appreciate you taking the time to make your views known on current policy issues of interest to you. Please leave your comment as well as your local zip code after the tone. Thank you and have a great day.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Hi. I'm calling to urge Senator Cornyn to return from recess and take immediate action to end Trump's illegal war with Iran. I ask that Senator Cornyn support a war powers resolution to exert Congress's constitutional authority over military conflict and conduct aggressive oversight with public hearings on the Trump administration's actions in Iran, as well as to refuse to pass any supplemental funding for this unauthorized military action, and to move to impeach Trump for his repeated defiance of the Constitution and genocidal threats against innocent Iranian civilians. Thank you so much for your time and consideration, and thank you so much for the staffers who are taking my call. Thank you so much. Bye. And it's as easy as that.
So that's all I wanted to vlog for the day. I hope that I gave you some level of comfort, maybe some ideas for your yard or some ways that you can make a difference in the world. This little cat just tried to escape. Her name is Fern. She doesn't know how good she has it as an indoor cat, but we caught her. I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and please stay safe, stay happy, stay informed, stay relaxed, and happy gardening as well. Love y'all.